Y'all ever scroll through social media and then you just see the most crazy people idealizing the worst possible characters ever? Because I literally just did that. I went on TikTok, I was scrolling a little bit, and then I saw this little rant posted by somebody. I forgot exactly who, sorry about that, but it was about Bullseye and trying to basically show us and dissuade people that you shouldn't be following this crazy bro. Like, why are you even trying to literally me, Bullseye? And then I was like, wait, I haven't seen any of this on my recommended page. So then I went to Google, you know, our man's best friend, and I searched up Bullseye, literally me. And then I saw 3, 4, 5 snapshots of people having that template for Bullseye, despite him being possibly top 5, top 10 most deranged characters in all of comics. I don't think there's a single redeeming bone in this character. But the really crazy thing about this, in my opinion, is how this mindset has literally just like transferred itself to people like a curse, like a parasite, right? What does this really say about us? Why are we turning literal monsters into mirrors? That's the most dangerous part about this. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, what is literally me? What does that mean? Well, it really started off very harmlessly as an internet slang, as most things do. A tongue-in-cheek way of saying, I relate to this character, whether it is their vibe, their emotional state, whatever, but over time, it has evolved into something much darker and deeper, right? Instead of empathy, it became aspiration. Characters who are written as like cautionary tales, people who are meant to warn us about obsession, about loneliness, about decay, whether it is through their morals or through literally killing others. They have become role models somehow. Think about all the characters that we've seen through fiction and how people have somehow decided to relate to them, whether it is like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, whether that is Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, even, what's his name? Ryan Gosling, what's the character that he played in Drive and Blade Runner? Those types of characters, they were never meant to be heroes. Do we understand this? They were meant to be a portrayal of fractured masculinity, in my opinion, at the very least, which was caused by mental illness, by alienation, by emptiness. But online, they get turned into mascots for the quote-unquote Sigma grind set. Now, this is very funny. If you say it in a very ironic way, we will all laugh. You got the whole squad laughing. But if people actually believe in the Sigma lone wolf lifestyle and carry that out and say it unironically, you're cringe. You are actually a low-level human being. And this became their template, right? For people who see vulnerability as weakness and moral ambiguity as, you know, being unpredictable as strength. That's the dangerous thing, in my opinion, about the literally me phenomenon, is because we could see into the psyches of everyday people online if people actually think the way that they're making these posts. It takes great storytelling and strips all of that away, the critique of it, what you could do with that, and leaves only the cool aesthetic. It leaves the acting. Maybe the guy who plays the character is very good at their job and they're very charismatic, and that is all they take from it. They strip away all the pieces of great character writing about what they've done onto other people. They take all of it and look at it at face value. They look at it kind of like how I see power scalers, at least normie power scalers, because these guys are the worst people ever to analyze media and what it really means, the themes of all of this, because they see it as, oh, this guy is really strong, oh, this guy has a lot of aura, that means they're a great character, oh, this guy is a crybaby, he shows emotions, he is a bad character, boo, bad. It's literally that mentality, the worst mentality that you could possibly have. That's stupid, because it actually makes them feel powerful for all of the wrong reasons. But let's bring it back to Bullseye, because this is where he comes in, because somehow, I don't know how, people took one of the most vile, sadistic, psychopathic assassins there is, and they said, oh yeah, he's literally just like me for real. Like, what? Bullseye is not a misunderstood character. He's not tortured, he doesn't have any sort of noble moral code, he's not an anti-villain, he's not somebody like you could relate to like Daredevil, he's not a morally great character like the Punisher, where you could see that he is completely out of his mind, but he still is trying to do the right thing, even though he does go a bit too far. His entire character, Bullseye that is taking life. He sees it as a game. He's not even somebody like Deadshot, who is like an actual assassin who does things for money. Bullseye, on the other hand, sees every kill as a performance, like an act. Every cruel thing that he does is deliberate. He doesn't try to seek redemption. He doesn't even pretend to be. He enjoys killing. And for some reason, the internet tried to romanticize his darkness just because of how good his acting is and how good the script was, specifically for season 3 of Daredevil. But look at the comics. We've seen him kill a bunch of Daredevil's love interests just for the love of the game. We've seen him hallucinate Daredevil onto other people and go on a mass killing spree. We've seen him flick toothpicks, teeth, a bunch of random things into a glass window and make it reflect and deflect down onto a populace of people, literally killing people without remorse or even a second thought. It's like us throwing something into the fridge. That is how he sees killing. There's nothing that he gets out of this. He's even violated women in the worst ways possible. He's killed people's wives, the Sentry's wife, just for him to get angry. Do you see what type of man he is? There's nothing to be admired here, right? People see his skill and his determination and all of his confidence as control, as purpose, and taking that in your life and knowing exactly who you are. But he is not that at all. He is chaos incarnate. He is like the Joker. What we see here is people are trying to mask their confusion. They're using Bullseye as a way to reflect that same confusion and calling it clarity, but this isn't even new. We saw the same thing happen with Homelander from The Boys. When that show blew up, people started saying, if I had Superman's powers, I would act just like him. And that is very concerning, considering that he is somebody who has R-worded other people, killed people without a second thought, done multitudes of war crimes, and has nothing to show for it, not a single ounce of emotion or remorse over his actions. Homelander is not an empowerment fantasy. He is a warning about what happens when somebody's ego is fueled by not only absolute power, but with zero accountability. Everything in his life revolves being seen as the #1 hero. He doesn't care what he does as long as he can get away with it. If it has anything to do with his public perception, he will suck up to the cameras and pretend that he is a good guy. He is every narcissist who thinks morality is somehow optional. Every fascist that you could possibly think of who wraps all of their cruelness as patriotism, as trying to serve their country, as being for the people when they're not. Homelander is not a literally me character. He's what you become when you are deeply traumatized, and in general, you should see him as a man baby. He has no control over his emotions. If you're quote-unquote trying to be a Sigma male, you would not have outbursts and psychopathic laughter sessions after losing control. Homelander goes against your entire ideology, but that nuance gets lost on people when they start to focus on his cool factor, right, instead of his sadism. And the worst part about all of this is that many of their fans don't even realize that they're being edgy. They think they're being honest, but when in reality, they're just exposing how broken the world really is. The fact that you could have 5,000 likes just by making this comment shows you how deep the trauma and just the misunderstanding a lot of people have over what humanity should be. Just because humanity is one certain way doesn't mean we can't strive to be better. The good news is that as time went on, idolizing Homelander became very corny to a lot of people, myself included. People start to realize that saying I'd be him does not make you look tough. It makes you look unstable. Do you need to be in Arkham Asylum? I'll give you a free ticket right now. That energy did not disappear. It shifted to other characters, but thankfully they are doing the same thing with heroes. They're turning to other characters like Batman, Spider-Man, and even Superman as the next generation of characters that you could relate to. On the surface, this selective hero worship it sounds like progress. At least people are gravitating towards good characters, but it's not exactly that simple, because now people are cherry picking which parts of these heroes they want to relate to and kind of discarding the rest. If you see Batman edits of him walking through the flames and there's captions there about some random nonsense, or Spider-Man, you see edits with him being broken and bloodied, alone under the rain, with more captions saying, "No one cares until you're gone," some sort of trying to be clever, stupid philosophy. It shows you how people latch onto moments because they validate their loneliness, their anger, their alienation, or their fantasy of being stronger than everybody else, but they ignore the resilience that defines these characters. Batman is not a symbol of isolation. He makes that joke, not even a joke, he says this being dead serious, that I work alone. But that man has more allies than any other hero there is. He is so woven in not only his own Bat family, but the rest of the DC universe. He is a symbol of perseverance despite all of the trauma that he has experienced. He saw his family destroyed right in front of him, and he built through time and effort a new family that can be with him, that can hold him up when times are down. A family who is just as capable and just as morally righteous as himself. If we look at Spider-Man, he isn't about suffering. I know a lot of people say Spider-Man writers as a meme, but he's about responsibility and compassion. Superman, as we know, is not naive. He's proof that kindness is a strength, not a weakness. But when you try to pick out these dark, most badass pieces of a hero's story and build an identity out of these bits and pieces, you're not celebrating these characters for why they're truly special. You're consuming the parts that you like and using it to build a personality. And that's not to say that all of this is bad, because sometimes this literally me culture can lead to something genuinely hopeful. The best example of this, in my opinion, is the Hope Core Superman movement, a movement that reframes him as a pure symbol of light, of optimism, and using some of his best and most inspirational moments as ways to, of course, inspire others and to help them reflect on themselves and be a better person. I think that is really cool. It might flatten its complexity a lot, but it also gives people something to believe in. The internet is a very cyclical, cynical place. So when you peep people out in the wild saying that Superman is somebody that they want to be like, or like, I want to care about other people, or I want to be better, that is powerful. Even if it's simplified, that's still Superman doing what he was created to do, what Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel would have wanted to inspire. Of course it's reductive. Superman is not just a big blue Boy Scout. He struggles, he questions himself, he fears failure, he carries the whole world on his shoulders. But when that energy is channeled towards hope instead of being an ultra-violent killing machine like Bullseye is, it shows that people are hungry for goodness again. And that is something that's very worth encouraging, in my opinion. Don't call them cringe, cheer them on. They're trying to change their life for the better. And if they have to use a fictional character for that, do not make fun of them, because media in and of itself is one of the few things that really is able to extrapolate and pull at our emotions and really get us thinking in ways real life, everyday conversations cannot. By layering everything in story and emotion, it gets us really on the move to lock in and do better. I believe, however, the real problem is when this simplification or the portrayal of simplified versions of these characters— I'm yapping, let me try again. Okay. The real danger starts when these simplified portrayals of these characters become the more dominant one within fandom, when people who don't read comics or watch like those full storylines on YouTube, or only know these characters through like short clips, memes, fan edits, whatever, that becomes their entire perception. Suddenly Batman is just a violent loner billionaire who preps for everything and hates everyone and like should be killing people but can't because he won't allow himself to, because if he does, he's going to start killing other people and become a serial killer. That is a type of long-winded stuff that people consume, and they think that they know everything about Batman because it's very hard to say in a single sentence. No. You know, like Spider-Man is a walking trauma dump who never catches a break. That is not who Spider-Man is, but TikTok and social media will make you think that way. Superman is a boring moral perfectionist who never struggles. And once these shallow takes circulate long enough within the internet ether, that is when casual fans start to think that that is the point. Meanwhile, real fans, right, you and me probably, the ones who know the layers of these characters, the imperfections, the conflicts, the humanity itself, the core of these characters, they get drowned out by people using these characters as avatars for their own cynicism, right? And then more backlash begins. There's a bit of a war between quote-unquote real fans and casuals, and then people start to hate these heroes, not because of who they are, but because of what fans have turned them into. The meme then becomes a message onto others onto what they really are, when actually it's just a story that got lost in translation. But how do you really fix that, especially when people are very ignorant and they do not want to change how they think unless they are given undeniable proof? And a lot of the times, they don't even have the attention span to carry an argument, so that is just null and void already. Now, if you haven't seen the recent Absolute Batman Annual, which is peak, it's so peak. I don't know if I ruined your eardrums, but my goodness, bro. 3 stories written in it, all of them are drawn and written to perfection. It is quite possibly one of the best issues of the year, but obviously it was going to be very controversial because it calls out 3 things that a lot of people don't like, especially on the either far right leaning side or just bad people. You don't have to be very far right, so let me just not use that in general. Let me just say bad people. Bad people don't like when you call out police corruption and brutality, immigrants, and white supremacy. Those are the 3 key terms that'll get them to burn down your house. And here we have that in abundance. Batman goes after the supremacists, he goes after those cops, and it is brutal. It is intense, and it's exactly in line with Absolute Batman and who he is, especially considering the fact that this is before the story that we've seen today. So he might have been a bit more brutal as well. And the online reaction through the multitudes of Twitter comms that I have seen has been really positive. But then we have people, if you scroll down through, of course, these 100,000 liked posts, we see people without a check mark, mind you. They're not even getting paid to be a bigot. At least get paid, get your bag up, bro. You're doing this purely for the love of the game. That's how we know you're a problem. There was a mass self-report over this issue because people were just coming in line with Nazi propaganda and their way of thinking. They were even editing all of Daniel Warren Johnson's art for the sake of making it seem like Batman was going after minorities, which is like, why would you do that? How evil could you possibly be to take time out of your day? Like, that is the most unemployed activity I have seen in my life, right? They called it woke garbage, as if Nazis haven't been the punching bag of comics for literal decades. And saying that comics aren't political in the biggest of 2025s make me think that you are just completely illiterate. I'm sorry to say this, but like, superheroes have been fighting against Nazis for the longest of times. It's not something new, and it's not even that jarring. It's not like we're talking about identity politics or anything like that. We're talking about hating people for having prejudice against others for no reason. Is it that hard to dislike people like this? But what they're really upset about isn't even Batman's morality. It's that his actions no longer fit their projection of him. Their self-insert no longer works. This version of Batman, the detached, apolitical, as if the first arc wasn't political, badass, doesn't challenge hate crimes. So when he does, it threatens their illusion and their perception of themselves. They feel like they're getting directly attacked, even though the issue, all it says is that we hate Nazis, not that we hate right-leaning people, because at the end of the day, if you hate people for having different opinions than you, you're also a bad person, and you have no sense of nuance, of course within reasons, because some opinions are outwardly bad and evil. Nevertheless though, it threatens their illusion, and instead of trying to admit that and come to terms with it, they lash out and call it propaganda, even though the edits that they're making is also propaganda. But the irony here is painful because Batman has been doing this ever since, well, forever, right? Since his creation. Superman has been doing it. Captain America, his entire popularity claim to fame is him punching Adolf Hitler in the face in his first issue. Even Joker himself, the clown prince of crime, the anarchy and literal chaos of Gotham itself, hates Nazis, but somehow in 2025, this is controversial. It's really weird because this literally me mindset has gotten to the point where people cannot separate their identity from fiction anymore. It feels like the character themselves has to agree with their politics every single time, and if they waver a little bit, they end up calling the work trash. And the funny thing about all of this is that it really got me thinking. In 1985 or 1986, around there, Frank Miller dropped the seminal Dark Knight Returns, and in that book, he fights Nazis. If that book was dropped today, would people end up hating it despite of all of its well-written and well-drawn artistry. I don't know, that's the crazy part, how I can't even predict what people of the modern era would do to such a phenomenal book. Even though it does have its problems, of course, what work doesn't, it still does get to the core of what Batman really is. He's somebody who doesn't validate fascists. He rejects them, and if it took you this long to notice that, you have never loved Batman. Ooh boy, that was a big rant today, huh fellas? But the literally me cultural wave wasn't about loving the characters. It's about loving yourself through them. That is why it caught on so much, because yeah, there's nothing wrong with relating to art. When you start idolizing the warning signals the writers are giving you, it starts to become more dangerous. You have to remember, fiction itself isn't about flattering you and stroking your ego. It is supposed to challenge you. Characters like Bullseye and Homelander are to make you feel uncomfortable and not seen. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. This is a very big topic that I've seen blow up recently because of the Bullseye drama. It's one of those very mainstream topics that anyone could really chime in on, which is what I like about it. And a lot of opinions will obviously be flying through the comment section, and I, of course, can't wait to read it. Remember to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a new video goes live. And yeah, see you all later. Take care. Deuces. Peace.